Yes, my name is Chad Gracia. I'm the director of The Russian Woodpecker. It's a film about the ghosts of the Soviet Union haunting Ukraine. It's about Chernobyl, and it's about a mad, irradiated artist who is searching for the criminal behind the Chernobyl catastrophe. It's also about the Ukrainian Revolution and Putin and Russia.
Okay, great. So we're making this interview to tell our audiences about the power of documentary, and you did theater before, and this is your first documentary. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that journey and how you relate theater and documentary.
Yeah, I love theater, and I produced theater for many years, and I don't want to speak poorly of theater, but I love the fact that film is much more permanent, that I can never share with you any of the theater productions I did in the 1990s. They're gone. They're like a flower. They bloom and then they wither. But film lasts, and that's such a that's part of its power. Should I repeat myself if there's honking?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
So I worked for many years in theater, and theater is wonderful and very powerful, but there's something about it that is a little bit sad. It's ephemeral. It's like a flower. It blooms and then it's gone, and I can never share it with anyone, and its impact can be less than film, because film is maybe not eternal, but it will certainly last for a lot longer than a theater production. And so I'm really attracted to that permanence, and not only permanence, but the fact that a film can be shown globally almost for free. So that's much more, to me, it's much more appealing in terms of social impact, film versus theater. Yeah, not only is this my first film, but I had no intention of making a film. I sort of accidentally fell into this. And so the main lesson that I learned is that anyone can make a film. Anyone with a story and a little bit of money can make a film that can change people's hearts and make an impact. That I had no idea. I thought you needed experience, and you needed to go to school, and you needed tons of money to get equipment and the staff and crew. But we just found a great story. We found a very inexpensive camera and a great team, and we made something that I think is really beautiful and important. Since my background is in theater, and my specialty there was as a dramaturg, as a story architect, when I started working on this project, especially because it's very complex with many different storylines, I knew that I needed to approach it like an engineer. So I thought about this as the film is a bridge over a very long river. Well, 82 minutes long river. So I needed to find a way to get the audience across this river from the beginning to the end. And I did that very sort of scientifically and logically. I didn't invent the rules. They go back to Aristotle and Shakespeare. But I used them when I was constructing my story. So I was very aware in the editing process of the three-act structure, and also at every moment in the film, every minute, I had an idea of what I wanted my audience to feel. And if I wanted them to be a little confused, or sad, or excited. And so we did a lot of visual maps, structures, and that was really helpful for us. And I really believe that unless you're a genius, and I'm not, unless you're an absolute genius of an artist and have an instinctive feel for this, or you want to do something that's experimental and you can get away with it. But for the rest of us, people like me, it's extremely helpful to have really to think like an architect. A story is like a structure. It needs a solid foundation, and it needs to follow the rules of physics almost. And then once you have your structure in place, then you can add little beautiful touches. You can paint your bridge any color you want, you can add lights, you can have flags, but the most important is the solid structure. So I read somewhere a long time ago, and it's helped me so much, and that is the idea that every story is about a journey from a plus to a minus. It could be the character is alive, the character is dead. The character doesn't have his love or her love, and at the end, the character finds his or her love. But it's always a transition from a state of a plus to a minus, or a minus to a plus. It's a value change. So for our film, we start out with a young man who was irradiated at Chernobyl, and the question is, was there someone responsible for this, and will Fyodor find the answer? And in the beginning, Fyodor is ignorant of this, and by the end, Fyodor has an answer. So that's our value change. And every act has a value change within the act, and every scene has a value change within the scene. You may start just a simple interview. Even this interview, you can say, at the beginning, we don't know who is this guy Chad Gracia. Well, by the end, we know who this guy is Chad Gracia. That's the value change. And I realized that some scenes, they're very beautiful, they might seem interesting, but if there's no value change, you can cut them from your movie and it doesn't affect the story. So it was very helpful for me to make sure that, and another way of saying value change is surprise. Every single interview, every single scene should in some way surprise or teach the viewer something new. So that's how I focused and turned what was a 3.5-hour film into an 80-minute film, by cutting everything that didn't have this value change. By asking yourself, not only in the editing process, but in the filming process, is there something happening in this scene? Is there a movement from plus to minus, or from minus to plus? Is there something surprising, some new information? That allows you to quickly realize what you should cut. And that's how we turned a 3.5-hour film into an 80-minute film, because we cut everything that didn't have a change, a value change, and then we had a very crisp, it's actually a very fast-moving story. And the worst thing that you want is for people to be bored and to walk out and not see your film. And many times when I was editing, I thought, oh, it's so beautiful, it's so beautiful. And then I thought to myself, it might be beautiful, but if people fall asleep, they're not gonna notice it. So we really focused on this structural commandment that every single scene should have should present new information, have a value change. I have to say one thing though. Just like the bridge, you can add some extras at the end. Once we had a very strict structure, then we allowed ourselves 2-3 minutes to play with a few scenes that violate this principle. And I discovered that audiences will forgive you if in general your structure is sound. Then you earn yourself room to play just a little bit, just for a few scenes, maybe one scene or a few moments.
And these rules of storytelling, how do you see them in fiction versus non-fiction films?
I don't see any difference at all. In the kinds of documentaries that I like to make, these are character-driven stories. They're true, but they still follow the same rules of a fiction film. Because if nothing interesting is happening, or if you violate these rules, it doesn't matter how important your subject is. It could be the most important. It could be how to prevent nuclear war or child trafficking. If you don't follow these rules, you will lose the audience. Maybe your family will watch your film and be happy, but without those dramaturgical rules being followed, then you don't have a story. I think that the distinction between a fiction and a non-fiction film, in terms of structure, and in terms, of course, there's nuances, but in terms of these rules, which I think are genetic, I think they're part of human nature, and without those, it doesn't matter your genre, you will have trouble if you ignore them, unless you're a genius and you can do some crazy Picasso style, or then you can do anything you want. And I wouldn't give advice to those people. They should follow their crazy instinctive hearts. Well, I think human nature is fairly universal, especially when it comes to tragedy and sadness. So it's pretty simple to elicit a response of sympathy. I can easily tell you, I can tell you a story, and if you relate to it, it's a story of loss, then I know that you will have some sympathy for my protagonist. That's the first step. It's just using your common knowledge about our shared humanity. Our character, when he was 4 years old, was sent to an orphanage, and he thought he would never he thought he would never return home. Everyone understands that this is terrible, so that's something I wanted to show very early so we could establish sympathy. In the editing process, it's extremely important to know what your audience is feeling and to take control of where their emotions are as much as possible. And so what I did is just relied on our common humanity. Everyone responds to tragedies in the same way. But of course you need to do test screenings, and so we would show the film to groups of acquaintances, not close friends, because we wanted honest responses, and I would watch their faces and while they were watching the film. And if they laughed, or if they got sad, or if they got bored, then that helped also. That feedback helped us to structure the emotional journey of the viewer. Well, I wasn't in the screening, so I didn't see the response during the show. But afterwards, I was surprised by how youthful and how much energy was in the audience, and how the questions were not only the traditional questions that I get about how did you film in the radioactive zone, how did you survive your cinematographer being shot by a sniper. They asked other questions about technical questions and questions that went deeper and that to me were more interesting. So I was surprised at the level of enthusiasm and curiosity and interest about the storytelling theory, maybe I could put it. My attempt was not, first of all, people laugh at unexpected moments. There's so many times when I didn't know why people were laughing, but the more laughter the better. I read somewhere, laughter has never killed any documentary. It's great if you have people that are laughing, because it means that they're with you and they're enjoying. If they're laughing with you, if they're not laughing at you, if it's something silly or a mistake. But I wasn't attempting to make, that wasn't a comic moment for me. That was more to show his mind was working so fast and his eyes were going all over because he's taking in all of this information and he's trying to make sense out of it. It's like you can see the gears running in his mind as he gets these crazy facts, and he's trying to put them together into something that could explain the Chernobyl catastrophe, because we certainly don't know the full truth about what happened at Chernobyl. And until the archives are unlocked and all of the deletions from the transcripts are removed, we'll never know. But those moments, I wanted the audience to see how hard it was for Fyodor to come to his conclusions. Now, having said that, Fyodor is very eccentric, and people love him, and people laugh with him. He's he's full of life. He's full of energy. He's unlike anyone I've ever met, which is the reason I decided to follow him. Hi, my name is Chad Gracia. I am the director of The Russian Woodpecker. It's a conspiracy thriller about Chernobyl, the Ukrainian Revolution, and an irradiated artist who is on a quest to find the criminal behind the catastrophe that destroyed his life. I hope you have a chance to see it. We are so happy to be showing it all across Colombia here at Ambulante. And I should say the reason I'm here is because when I finished the film and found a producer, my producer said to me, Chad, there are two festivals that we must go to, Sundance and Ambulante. All the rest are negotiable, but those two we must attend. So we went to Sundance, we had a lot of great success there, and now here we are in Ambulante, and I can say that they're equally exciting and equally fun, and I'm equally proud and happy to be here. So thank you, and I hope you have a chance to see The Russian Woodpecker and that you enjoy it.
Okay,
Corte. It's okay?